Welcome to Strong Conversations, hosted by Simpson Strongtie, where we bring partners, colleagues, innovators, and leaders together for insightful conversations. We dive into the subjects and issues that we all face, forging stronger connections and relationships along the way. In our Building the Brand series, we talk to leaders and entrepreneurs in the building industry about what it takes to start a venture or business and build it into a brand. We talk about taking a chance on yourself and the determination and resilience that it takes to stay the course. Our guests share with us what it means to be a heart-led leader and the importance of not just building the brand, but building a culture that your employees can thrive in. In this episode of Building the Brand, John Kelly, principal of the Kelly Design Group, is one of the most well-known engineers in the Las Vegas area. But an accident changed how he viewed both his life and business. Hear from John as he tells his story of how both survived and thrived in every aspect of his life.
All right, welcome back to another edition of the Strong Conversations podcast. I am Sam Marcoux, and this is the Building the Brand series. And joining me right now is a very special guest, Mr. John Kelly. John, how are you?
Doing well. Glad to be here.
I am glad you're here. This is not the first time that we have spoken. This is not the first time that we have spoken about some of the things that have happened in your life. But when we started putting together this series of podcasts, I was talking to my colleagues, my coworkers, people that were saying, who would be good guests? And the name that floated to the top for me was you, Mr. John Kelly from the Kelly Design Group. So for the uninitiated, for those that don't know who you are, what is it that you do?
Well, I provide structural engineering services for production home builders, multifamily builders, custom home builders. We do a number of types of engineering, everything from commercial work and forensic work. But I would say, the majority of what we're known for is wood frame buildings, production homes, and it's been good for us. It's a mindset. It's a different way of thinking when it comes to design versus cost. I mean, ever since they built the pyramids, you had to consider manpower and what things cost and labor and such and put things together. So I'm one of the few engineers you're going to meet that I had bags on when I was a young man. Did a lot of piecework, stapled my hand to a roof. They took my cat's paw and they laughed at me. I've actually built things. I've done a lot of things. In fact, I was going to be a cabinet maker when I was young man. So anyway, mainly, like I say, we're licensed in Utah, California, Nevada, and Arizona. But I'd say most of our work is in Nevada right now.
Okay, we're gonna get to the design work, but you just said something. You just casually threw this in. This is a very John Kelly thing to do. I have noticed. You just said you're one of the few engineers, and I would agree with you, that had bags on. Meaning you swung the hammer. You made a few connections out
My
there.
shim with a 32-ounce hammer. Yeah, I've done it.
And did you say that you stapled your hand to the roof?
Yeah, I was putting on some paper and I wasn't paying attention and looked at my buddy talking and I caught the meat between my thumb and my finger. And so, obviously, I'm uncomfortable. I'm trying to find my hammer, my cat's paw, and the suckers grabbed it from me. And then so I'm just sitting there. I'm like, all right, very funny. Get me out of this. Well, I was all right. It wasn't that bad.
I was all right. I just stapled myself to the house that I was built.
When I fell off a roof, nail on fascia. I mean, I've done all of it. Piecework. I used to get 15 cents a block for piecework. Do a lot of blocking. So I've done a little bit. I mean, I never took on the career, full time.
Right.
It was just one of my many part-time jobs during college. But I know I've had a hammer and a saw in my hand. So
well, that's got to be invaluable when you are putting practicality into your design.
It helps. And talking to framers, I understand. What they're talking about.
Yeah. So 100%. Do you ever catch them by surprise when they're like, "Well, you don't know how it works"? And I'm like, "Actually, I kind of do."
Oh yeah, more than once. Because I wear the tie. I have the whatever. I have the look, and they think I'm just a guy that sits in the office, air conditioned office, and punches numbers and draws details that can't be built.
Yeah.
No, it's not my deal. If it can't be built, we're not gonna do it for you. So, yeah, every now and then a framer will. I mean, once he knows, and then we're friends. Yeah, right away. So.
Well, it's a tie that binds you. For sure. I mean, it's like, by the way, for those that are just listening to this and not watching this, John is very dapper. You've got the tie, you've got the suit. You look good, man.
Thank you.
I kind of want them to just pan to you. I don't need to be in the shot anymore.
I don't like if you look back. You look, no, yeah, I'll shot that.
Like, so how'd you get started in structural engineering? Like you said, your part-time job in college, you're swinging a hammer, you had all these different jobs. Did you know at that point you were going to be a structural engineer, or was that something that happened later?
No, that didn't actually. My father was in the Navy, so San Diego was one of his last stops in a number of cities across the United States. Every 2 years we were moving, and I spent a week on an aircraft carrier with my dad. It's called a Tiger Cruise. After a Westpac tour, which is a 9-month tour, they stop in Hawaii. They send half the crew home, and then a lot of fathers can bring their kids on the boat, and we take the rest of the trip from Hawaii to San Diego on the boat. And we did all kinds of things. I shot an M16 out the fantail, crawling out of airplanes in the ready room, all the scenes you see in the Top Gun. I was in all those rooms and all that. I wanted to be a pilot, and then once I realized I didn't have a body like Tom Cruise and perfect eyesight and perfect hearing and all the other things, okay. So then I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer, which was also a good business in the 90s. But then economy kind of died, and actually, I started at UCSD. I started as an electrical engineering, and that took about a year of that, and it just wasn't fitting. And I gravitated over towards structural engineering, and it's been right for me. And at 17 years old, I was able to choose the right path, and here I am today. I love what I do, and it's definitely made for me.
That's pretty incredible. Like at 17, you are literally a teenager and a child and a minor, not even an adult, and you kind of figured out, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I started college at 17. It was tough. Yeah, it was a whole new. I thought I was smart. I was in the mentally gifted programs. I thought I was pretty sharp. I got to UC San Diego. Well, I tell you, the curve changed a little bit. Yeah. I had to learn how to study again. But it was good for me. It was tough school, but it helped me become who I am today.
I thought I was smart, and then it just turned out I had a lot of dumb friends that I hung out with. And then when I started hanging around smart people, I'm like, oh, I'm just okay. Like you kind of like, it was a challenge for me to kind of fit in after that. But so your first job in the industry, was it framing, doing piecework?
Well, so to speak, in the industry, yes. But one of my first jobs as an engineer, I worked for a small company in a little town called La Habra, which is kind of in the middle of Orange County. And we did a lot of cold form steel design.
Oh wow!
And a lot of high rise, a lot of commercial work, and a lot of wood engineers never had to deal with lateral torsion or flexural buckling on cold form steel studs and frames. And we made entire structures out of cold form steel back then. And so it was fun. It was a really good experience. So I would say that was my first introduction to the industry, so to speak.
I'm just going to nod my head yes, because you just said 4 words in a row that had multiple syllables, and I don't know what any of them means individually, let alone collectively, but smart stuff there. So that first stop as a structural engineer, how old are you, like 21, 22, or?
Well, I had a little bit of a mishap at UC San Diego. It was a 5-year program to get a 4-year degree, a structural engineering degree, which is awesome. Not many colleges offered an undergrad structural engineering degree at the time. So I was probably 25.
Okay.
Yeah, around 25.
Did that feel like home, that first place? Or was it like, okay, I'm good, I'm coming here, I'm going to get the experience, but I've got these other plans in mind? Like what was that mindset?
I always wanted my own company. I wanted to have $1 million in the bank by the time I was 30. That was my goal as a teenager. In the 80s, $1 million seemed like a lot of money.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it was tough. Of course, making that transition from college to the workplace, it's always a little bit of a difficult transition. But I was lucky enough to work for a smaller firm and a very, very intelligent gentleman named Edward Lenskog, EXL of structural engineers. He was amazing, sharp man. He was so intuitive. And I would struggle with something. I'd studied it, and the night before, I'd come in the next day to work and ask him questions, and he would just go, literally. I go, oh. He taught me the KISS method.
Okay.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, the smartest guys I've ever met, the most intelligent, truly intelligent people, that's what they do, and they keep it simple. They don't try to show how smart they are.
Yeah.
Here's the answer. So, it was nice.
It only goes back to that principle of the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right?
Yeah.
Why complicate it?
Why would you? Well, some of the guys that think they're smart, they try to show you how smart they are. They're really not.
So, this is early 90s?
Yes.
All right. So
you grunge era, yeah.
In the grunge era, were you listening to Nirvana and
Pearl Jam? Sure.
That was your
Dirt was young. Yeah, it was great. I had a lot of fun.
That's good music. That's good era.
Yeah, sure.
So You
the
go-
flannel shirts with the thermal, and the jeans and the whole deal.
Hey, you're in a full-fledged suit right now.
Yeah. But back then, that's what you did. I mean.
So walk me through what happened. You go from that small firm. Where'd you go next?
Yeah, and after about 5 years in '94, almost '95, I believe, I wanted to make a change, and a company in Irvine called Bourne Associates. They were interested in my experience in cold form steel. At the time, it was still kind of an emerging material as a structural material, not just a curtain wall or a partition.
Yeah.
To build actual bearing walls with it and things, and trusses and frame floors with it was still kind of a new idea. So they hired me, and I worked for them for 5 or 6 years. Opened their office in Las Vegas. That's what got me to Las Vegas, and it was a lot of fun. The cold form steel stuff we did. We were some of the first engineers to use screws to attach plywood to cold form steel and make shear walls. That's in the code now. It wasn't back then. We made trusses out as cold form steel sections. It was an emerging time, so to speak, with cold form steel. I still think it's a great material to build with.
It's very innovative design work too. I mean, for the times, right? Like people listening to this, especially engineers, might not know that, but you guys are on the cutting edge.
Sure, because at that time, cold form steel was just for partitions.
Yeah.
Or curtain walls. It wasn't used for bearing walls. But it's if you brace it properly and design it properly, it's a very, very, very economical and stout material.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna pivot off of the career path because you and I met earlier this year. We were walking from one location to another, and we'd been introduced by an associate. We were just walking and talking, and we got on the subject. I think I'd probably asked you a very similar situation. How'd you get started, all that fun stuff, and tell me about your life, because people are interesting, and this story is one of the most fascinating, interesting ones that I may have ever heard in my life, quite frankly. And I don't want to oversell it, but I just remember you telling me this story, and my jaw was on the freaking floor. Hearing this ordeal. So, were you in Vegas when this happened?
yes, I was living in Las Vegas when I had an accident. At the time, I was at my buddy's place on the Colorado River near Blythe, California. I had an off-road accident, but I was living in Las Vegas, and I believe I was still working for Bourne Associates at the time, and I was an adrenaline junkie. Loved off-roading. It kind of replaced my knee. I played a lot of sports in high school and before high school. And so that adrenaline, rush you get from this, I think off-road kind of replaced that in my 20s. I had some conversation with some scouts that played college football, but I wasn't big enough and I knew I wasn't. So I just wanted to get my education and move on. So I got into off-roading, which is a lot of fun. I still do a little bit of it, a little more safe way I like to believe, but, it was just kind of one of those things that just kind of happened and nobody expected it.
So you talked about, and I believe the adrenaline junkie thing, you're talking about wanting to be a fighter pilot, airplanes. You're going to go find that, right? You're going to go find something to kind of satisfy that part.
It's kind of things like that you get drawn to.
Yeah.
So, but everybody, we do a lot of things: snow skiing, paragliding, hang gliding, jumping on airplanes, diving in the ocean. A lot of things we do are dangerous, but sometimes you don't realize how dangerous they are.
Right. And that's kind of where I wanted to go. You help me orient around this. So you're out with friends and you're camping. You're at your buddy's place.
Yeah, I was at my friend's place at the river, and it was a big weekend. It was Labor Day. No, it was Memorial Day weekend in May, and I had been working a lot of long hours. I was really hyped up about the weekend, and we spend the days on the water on the river jet skiing, and then we ride ATVs and dune buggies at night in the dunes across the highway, and just have a fun weekend, with friends. And I got there late, a little bit late on a Friday evening, and I pulled my ATV off the back of the truck and say, "Hey, I'm going to buzz a farmer's field real quick." There's this kind of farmer's field real close to where my buddy lived, or where his place was. And an ATV, a four-wheeler, that's fun. You slide through the corners, and that's what you do. It's fun. And I had two speeds, on and off. It was either going or not. And so I say, "I'm going to buzz the farmer's field real quick." And I don't know, for some reason I turned a little early into this field instead of going all the way to the corner. And I turned a little early, I guess. But that day, some kids were playing around, and at night, traveling at 70, 80 miles an hour, it's it's hard to stop on a dime.
Right.
So anyway, I turned a little early and ended up in the middle of this field. And then on my favorite trail, there's this big tree. It's 2.5 foot diameter, 30 feet long. And like I say, it came up on me quick. I think my foot slipped off the peg. I think I broke my leg before I hit the tree, but it's the memories sometimes, they fade, to go back and forth. But anyway, it's at night, traveling very fast, and I ended up hitting this tree. I broke my leg, and my right femur, I stabbed it into the tree I hit. I actually have 3 inches of my femur in a bag at home. But my friends, God bless them, they went and got the bone out of the tree the next day and recovered my bike that was all crumpled. But I was telling the story, I guess.
Yeah.
If you're into off road, you go over and you get the air knocked out of you. You get back on your bike and you go home. It happens. If you're having fun, you're on the edge of trouble. So anyway, the first time I woke up, and I guess the night I was by myself. My friends are only a few hundred yards away.
And what year is this, by the way?
This was 1999.
Okay, so it's 1999. Cell phones existed, but they're not prevalent.
They weren't prevalent at all.
Yeah.
Mine popular. I didn't have mine on me.
Right.
Yeah. But I was only in the farm. I was a few yards away. I was in a farmer's field. But it turns out they couldn't find me because I wasn't quite where I was supposed to be, so to speak, and it was dark. But anyway, so you go first. Again, if you're used to off road, you go over, you get the air knocked out of you. It happens. It's the first time I woke up, I was like, yeah, all right. I'm gonna lay here for a minute. I'll be okay.
Right.
No big deal. Then the second time I woke up, I'm messed up pretty bad. I look down, I see my boot on my chest. It says Axo. It's the brand of boots I have. I'm like, oh, that's not good. Then I look down, I see my bone sticking out of my leg. I go, oh, this is really not good. So here's the funny part. I thought, because if you off-road, you always have a kit on your bike with like zip ties and duct tape and baling wire and things, because you go over, you break off the handles and things, and you got to get home. How do you undrive the thing? Anyway, so I'm here laying there thinking, if I can get to my bike, I got this 3/8 extension, I can tape this up, I can make it home. Yeah, well, that didn't happen. No, that didn't happen at all. And so laid there a little while longer. I'd been there as far as we estimate, I hit the tree around 11:30 midnight, and they found me at about 5. If the sun had come up, I'd have bled out for sure because of the heat. But the third time I woke up, I knew I'd been there a while. I was kind of cold, and it was real quiet. You could hear crickets almost, and beautiful sky, a lot of stars. Out there at the river, there wasn't a lot of light pollution. And I'm laying there, and I knew I'd been there a while. Yeah. And, first time I got scared, and, I don't know. I mean, I had many other, not many, but I had a few other life-threatening experiences before then, and some other things, car accidents and whatever. But it's going to sound like a humble brag, but it's important with the story. I remember laying there, and the fear of death. When I said my last prayer, I said, "All right, this is it. This is where I die, right here." And fear is, it's hard to describe. It's a fear like none other. But as luck would have it, my friends finally found me. So the police came, the ambulance is there, and so they're shaking me. They're trying to get an idea of my awareness. And who's the president? Who's the president? I go, effing Clinton. Oh, he's all right. Get him in and let's go. So they took me to nearby Palo Verde Hospital, and then which they did a little triage on me, and then they life flighted me to Palm Springs, and I broke 28 bones.
Wow.
Face. I got metal all over my face, arms, leg. I mean, it was bad, but I survived, and here to talk with you and tell a fun story.
Not only did you survive, I mean, I kind of unofficially titled this "Survive and Thrive," because you broke 28 bones. You're in the middle of the night by yourself. No real way to get a hold of your friends who aren't that far away but can't find you. Right. And had it been 5 hours later, or the sun was out, we're not here today.
It's facts. Yeah.
And this is the story that I was telling everybody, put my jaw on the ground, talking to you about this. And we were just talking right before we went, pushed record on the old button here. In that moment, Did you have any sort of like epiphany with regards to work? Like, did work pop into your head in that moment, or is it just
No, I was laying on the ground there.
Right.
No, I told God to tell my family I love them, and well, then, I just kind of gave up. To be honest, which was again a really strange feeling because that wasn't my nature.
right?
But no, some of that came a little bit later in the process, in the healing process. It was a long healing process.
Let's talk about that healing process. All in, what was that like? What did that entail, and how long did that take?
Yeah, well, I spent my first week or two in Palm Springs, and they did 10 CAT scans a day. I mean, they couldn't figure out why I didn't have any brain damage, really bad, or spinal cord damage, which thank God I didn't. But then they decided I was stable enough. Then plastic surgery put my face back together, which I thought I had more jaw personally. I don't know. Anyway, he did what he could. I guess what he had to work with. And when they flighted me over to back to Las Vegas, an ICU at the hospital in Las Vegas, and I was in the hospital for 4 or 5 months or so, about 4 months. And then I graduated from there. I wasn't bad enough to be in the hospital. I wasn't good enough to go home yet. So I went to a home health care facility on Harmon by the college, kind of an old folks home kind of place, assisted living almost.
Yeah.
But then I could still get intensive care if I needed it. And God bless my mom. She was a nurse for 45 years, and she dropped everything her whole life and came out and sat. She slept in a chair, and 58 years old for 6 months. Made sure I got all my medicine, made sure anything I needed. And there were some stories there. When they moved me, they didn't tell anybody. They didn't tell my family. And they show up 4 or 5 days later. I thought I was in Palm Springs, and it was Las Vegas, and I had all this food stacked on the table next to me, and I couldn't feed myself, couldn't wipe my own butt. I mean, it was bad. And these folks weren't really taking care of me like they should have, and they did some other things wrong when they shipped me across state lines without permission and a whole bunch of stuff. But my mom, God bless her, their experience, and of course, being my mom, she really helped me a lot to get back to health. And to this day, I don't forget it.
No, I mean, that's incredible. It's incredible dedication. So you're going through your rehabilitation, your healing. You've got a lot. I mean, obviously you're going through a lot there. When does work pop back into your head?
It's funny. It was pretty quick, actually. I'm laying there on the bed after they got me to Las Vegas, and my family still joke about this. My nephew came in to visit me. He was about 5 at the time. Could barely see over the bed. He looks at me and goes, "Uncle John, you're all broke." And I go, "Yeah, buddy, I'm all broke." And then I says, "Can somebody give me a laptop? I got some work to do."
You get right into it.
And they're looking at me like, "No, honey, you can't even move your fingers." No, I got work to do. No. So yeah, of course it was on my mind. Because of course in our business, it's,
Yeah.
you got to get things done. And so yeah, I started kind of asking for my laptop to try and get back to work early on, but I couldn't even use my fingers still. I was in traction, and I had more surgeries to do. It was funny, I guess, in the moment.
You go through something like that, and you go through, being broke, as your nephew would say. You get fixed, you repair, you move on, you survive, and then you thrive. What lessons do you take from that accident that maybe apply to work? And I'm fascinated because I do think we are products of our environment, and the environment you're in right there was harrowing, to say the least. So what do you take from that experience, and how does it apply to work, if anything, or does it not?
It does. It's all together, people, because we're family, and good engineers at the office are, often good family men, it's all tied together. But I think some of the cliches ring true in these days. At least you have your health. Yeah, you're right. Well, when you can't even wipe your own butt or feed yourself, at 33 years old, and I was really strong. I was in great shape. I was a bodybuilder for a long time. To go from that to, I can't feed myself. That was very tough. And it was the crawl. And again, that wasn't my first struggle with things, near-death experiences or just bad accidents or whatever. But that crawl back to life, back to reality, without my friends and family. One good friend of mine from San Diego, her name is Sherry Ames. She came out every weekend to see me, and just, if nothing else, just sit next to me, hold my hand, and just, it was critical to my recovery, without a doubt. If I didn't have my family and my faith in God, which helped a lot, there's no way I could have recovered even in the 6 or 8 months that I did. It would have been a lot longer, maybe not at all. It was a tough crawl. There's no doubt about it. But during that recovery time, you had a lot of time to think.
Yeah.
What I want to do with my life, what's really important, and people talk about, friends and family and live every day like it's your last. Yeah, it's true. I don't know. I can't say I'm necessarily living the extolling the cliches as much as I'd like to. But I do my best to do the best job I can in my 8 or 10 hours at work and leave it.
Yeah.
And then if I'm playing pool with my friends on my league, or if I'm, at the gym or where I'm at, just I try to enjoy that person's time and that moment with them, because really life's a collection of moments, and you put them together, and that's your life.
Got life. So you were working for an engineering firm when this all happened. You spent a lot of time getting back together. Did it motivate you? Because you'd already talked about, John, I want to run my own business. I want to have my own thing. Did this whole experience maybe hasten that a little bit to say, okay, now's the time?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just decided, hey, look, life's too short.
Yeah.
It really is. If I'm going to do it, might as well do it now. And, within a year, 8 months to a year, I started my own company with $30,000 in the bank and one client.
Who was that first client? Obviously somebody you knew already, I'm assuming.
Beezer Homes.
Beezer Homes was your first client.
Did all their work, from like 2000 to 2004, right in there.
Okay. And you're in Vegas. You start, was it the Kelly Design Group? Was that the?
Yeah, KDG, yeah. So I started out KDG LLC, and I switched to an INC format, but it's always been the Kelly Design Group.
Okay. So names on the wall, names on the door. You got your own business. You made it.
Well, still doing it. Yeah, well, still in there. 25 years later, still hanging in. And
we were talking a little bit about this. A colleague of mine, he Ramsey, Ramsey. He's not good with the numbers. So he goes, I think John Kelly is responsible for like 91% of all the projects that come through Las Vegas, which may be a little high, but you have a substantial percentage of all the design work going through Las Vegas has your stamp on it, or did it at some point, right?
Production housing, yes. We did a lot of work in the early days, especially on steel by the former company, Morm. It was good. It was a good experience. We were able to use the interactions with different builders and different contractors to put together a really solid set of plans and details that people loved, and it was economical. It worked great. It sold itself.
Yeah,
it was good.
How do you go from? But I mean, you had one client, good client,
yeah,
to one of the most well-known design firms in Las Vegas. How does that happen? What do you attribute that to?
A lot of hard work. It's a lot of kissing babies and shaking hands, and being out talking to people. It's a lot of time, really. It's mostly time, because you don't get to make relationships with an email, or a text. A lot of people think email is communication. No, you're disseminating information. That's what emails are. Communication is communication with us, like this. And I've always been, like that kind of guy. I would like to meet and talk to you.
Yeah.
I know that seems to be fading away with digital webinar and web calls and things, but I don't know. I think that's what the most. I made good friends with contractors. There's a funny story. I was a member of the Framing Contractor Association. I could tell maybe if you want.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Quick story. I don't know. I guess I associated a lot with contractors and hung out with them, and I understood them. They understood me, and got to be friends. I joined the Framing Contractor Association, and they had monthly meetings, maybe, or quarterly meetings, and there was usually 8 to 10 guys would show up. Not really big. Sometimes they talk about this trust company from this other state coming in and how are we going to handle it. And they would talk about different things. And one of the new code, when the code changes was coming up, I believe it was the EO 6 code, probably somewhere in there. And they wanted me to talk in front of the group and talk about what is or equal, right? Who gets to pick alternate hardware, and what does or equal really mean? Of course, I love your symbol, no equal. But at that time, there were so many different types of hardware on the market. Harlan Metal, ACS, of course, Simpson Strong Tie, Game Plate. There was a dozen different companies, and it seemed like people would just nail on any piece of metal, any nail, and any screw, and they would just kind of wing it. And then, of course, and one of the inspectors at the time, Tom Gage at the city of Las Vegas, he was some people didn't like him. I liked him. He was tough, but he was fair. He was fair to everybody, and he just wanted it done right. If it's not per plan, fix the plans. So I don't have a problem. Anyway, so I accept this invitation to talk about hardware, what it means, what or equal really means, and within the code, and how it shouldn't work. I'm getting all these phone calls from people, all just random people. I don't even know. You're going to be talking about this, right? I really want to be there. I'm like, okay. So I said, I better invite some of my friends. So I invited a few of my competitor friends and plan check gentlemen and to come and talk about it, to help me talk about this, because it smelled like it was growing. Well, this 6 or 8 person group turned into like 500 people in this huge deal. And we talked about, what the code really means and who gets to choose or equals. Is it the salesman? Is it the inspector? Is it the framer? Is it the engineered record? And of course, the record really needs to be the one to at least sign off on things, if not being involved in choosing. And a lot of the framers didn't like that. They wanted to be able to just kind of wing in whatever they wanted to do. I'm like, well, if you want, push comes to shove, you want to get the established loads in a catalog from a manufacturer, you got to install it right.
Yeah.
Short joisting was a big problem back then, a lot of things. So that helped me grow. Those relationships with everybody in the industry, from the day laborer to the CEO, establishing relationships in all levels of folks, it really helped. And it helped me too, because I got different levels of feedback and communication from people that really helped me improve what I do. To this day, I still appreciate those types of conversations.
You mentioned communication, and email is not communication. That's sharing information. Communication being more, at least usually face-to-face, but it's amazing how different society is, where if you were to call somebody on the phone and just say, hey, they're like, it's like a humongous gift.
Yeah, people, they text now. They won't call.
Text. Yeah, I'm guilty of that too.
The phone works. You don't send me 85 texts. Call me.
But it's like, is that communication piece, like you said, it seems to have faded, right, with the advent of technology. Does it make it more important to do it?
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Without a doubt. Especially, gentlemen, my age or older, they still really respect wanting to sit down and talk. Look them in the eye, tell them what you can do, and then do it, and then it makes a difference.
A couple more questions for you, John. And we're talking to John Kelly from the Kelly Design Group here on Strong Conversations for the Building the Brand series. You certainly built a brand, especially in that Las Vegas market, like we talked about. Talking about work now, what's your proudest moment in your professional career to this point, other than being on our podcast?
God bless you. I would say, just some of the recognition that, folks would have from any contractors and builders. It's not, I couldn't tie that answer to like an award,
Sure,
or something like that. But just to have been able to stay in business 20, 25 years, I'd say that's probably the most proud accomplishment. And then, with all the ups and downs in the economy, every 3 or 4 years, something's happening.
Sure.
When I started my company, it was 2001. We're in Iraq. Things were crazy. I mean, and the towers were coming down. It was a crazy time, and I just started my company. Like, wow, what's going to happen? So it's been a lot of ups and downs, but just keeping the faith, keep working hard, and good things can happen.
I had a couple more questions for you, John. One tied into what you just said, what's going to happen, right? And that was the question when you started. You're over 20 years in now. You've established yourself. Everyone knows who you are. For the most part in this industry, I drop your name, people are like, we know who that is. But what's next? What do you see, if not for you, but for the industry? What's the next big thing?
Well, I think for us, I'm going to just continue to grow my firm in the southwestern United States. I think the industry, I think panelizations continue to grow, offsite construction. There's a couple of associations, one of them I belong to, that promotes that type of thing. It's not new anymore. Hell, Bill Pulte started the trend. You know, he was one of the trendsetters 20 years ago or more. But I still think, especially in apartments and condos and things, I think offsite construction, panelization, whatever term you want to use, I think that's going to be even more popular as we continue to need lower cost construction faster, and we need to respond to the markets quicker. I think that's going to be a more prevalent. Tiny homes are the hot thing now. You see them all over the internet, and companies are building them. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, public builder starts building tiny homes.
Well, not surprising either.
So that should be fun. The sky is the limit, right? Even if you don't reach for the sky, you can't touch the stars.
Oh, well, look, that is very profound, John. Say it again for me, because I'm going to mess that up. If you don't reach for the sky, you can't touch the stars.
Yeah, you can never touch the stars. Yeah, if you don't reach for the sky, you can't touch the stars.
All right. Well, speaking of stars, I'm just going to go ahead and skip to the most important question of the entire podcast, the entire show, perhaps the entire week. We talked, we didn't touch on everything in your life. We talked about some pretty key moments in your life, from work as well as personal. You mentioned Tom Cruise and Top Gun, but if tomorrow, we're in Southern California right now recording this, we're in the entertainment capital of the world. Tomorrow, Hollywood calls and says, John Kelly, we're going to make a movie about your life. Who's playing you in the movie? And what current movie best describes your life and career?
Wow. Well, I always like maybe Mark Wahlberg or Kevin Costner playing me. Those are two.
Kevin Costner and Mark, maybe together. John Kelly's too much for one act.
That's kind of I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a tough question. I mean, I identify with Top Gun a lot, of course, because I'm a military brat. I identify with that a lot. Overcoming challenges, current movies right now
I'll accept Top Gun. By current, I just meant things that were made.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of metaphorical parts of the movie that would probably model my life fairly well. And if that could be me, that would be amazing.
Well, the maverick of the structural engineering world, Mr. John Kelly, thank you very much.
Thank you
for being here on the show. And thank you all for joining us. Stay tuned for more strong conversations. Building the Brand series coming soon.